All right, what's up, guys? We are live to talk about 50 Blades of Grace. I mean scammers. Sorry.
Not not
And,
not to be confused.
right. um, and we're just gonna share. I suppose. I think we can talk about specific instances, right? Because they're kind of like case studies, but also we'll just be talking in general about how to go about, trading and stuff like that without getting, like NZ customed.
Yeah, and I think a good point to make right up front is the secrets, if you want to call them, that we're sharing aren't things that scammers don't already know. So it's not as though we're going to reveal any tactic or method that a scammer would use that they don't already know. So just to kind of
Right. The
get that out of the way.
tutorial is next weekend or next
Yeah,
week.
they already know these things. It's making you guys aware of these things that scammers do so that you know what red flags to look out for and tell them to piss off.
Right. Should we just get into it?
Yeah, we can just hop right into this one. I don't know if you had a your big red flag. What is your crimson flag that you look out for?
Honestly, I think, well, I don't know that I can rank them like that, but I would say if it's too good to be true, it's not
Yeah,
true.
there's been a few of those that I've seen, and as many of those have ended up with either problems or they were flat out scams. Now, this isn't to say that good deals don't come up. Like an example that I had was I was able to purchase an Alpha Beast 1.0. It was in new condition. It basically someone bought it, never touched it, and I was able to sweep that up for. I think I actually paid 450 for that one. So to me, that was a relatively good deal for a knife that's no longer in production. That isn't really a too good to be true moment though, because Alpha Beasts are what are they 420 like for standard version?
Hashtag.
Yeah. Hey, let's get that hashtag going,
Right.
guys. The devil's lettuce. Yes,
Right.
your neighbor knew what you did last week. So that's like an example where it's not completely unrealistic, but if you saw like an Alpha Beast for $300 brand new, you might want to check that person's credentials just a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say like I personally would value in an interaction like this. I would personally value my read on the person themselves over my what I gather from pictures, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
it's like if they don't really want to show you pictures or they're blurry and they just seemingly can't find good lighting anywhere. I guess not everybody has access to outside, right? Um, so I'd say that things like that are a lot more of a red flag to me than like anything that you would see in like the image. I mean, if you see a dead body in the background, well, at least the knife is sharp, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be said for if someone is playing games like that though, where if you get to the point they don't want to take pictures, they don't have access to a camera even though they have access to their phone. That type of situation, I'd just pull away. Even if the deal is good, that type of stuff would make me want to pull away from it just because I'm like I don't want to play games with this person.
Right, definitely time to pull out at that point.
That's the red pill way.
Right. uh, I would say like this is going to unfairly screw over plenty of people who are just getting into it, right? Like just getting into the community. But the reality is, I personally would never trade with somebody unless like I knew who they were and they had like a good reputation. Like it's
That's a
just
huge oh man, that's a huge one. And not to cut you off too long here, but
it's
the
fine. I'm
amount
already offended.
oh, it's perfect, right where I want you. So
Cool.
the amount of times that I've seen someone get scammed by a sock puppet account. it's a clear throwaway account that someone created in a day, followed a whole bunch of people, and then put up their first post for sale. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. That person could be a real person. They could be. But it's a little bit suspicious that their first post ever is that they're trying to sell a ballad song and they have like 100 followers or no, they're following like 100 people and like 20 people are following them. It's if people don't find, maybe that's just me. I think you're in agreement here, but I find that very suspect.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know. I just look, if you don't know who somebody is, if they don't have a name in the community, then they're not risking anything, right?
Yeah, reputation is a big thing.
Right. Like, for you to scam somebody would be absolutely ridiculous, right?
It would be a very dumb idea for a three to $500. It would be completely pointless for me to have gone so many years trying to create content, trying to be active in the community, only to just scam someone for $300. Completely a dumb move. Now, I have seen reputable people end up in a situation where there was claims made against them, but having a reputation helps mitigate it a lot. You know, especially someone who has been around a while now. There are people who kind of have a quick rise to fame, and they could take advantage of that in very bad ways.
Like, they
But
could exit scam.
yeah, but if someone's been around for a while, you know, there's people that um, they want to continue relationships within the community. The chance of them actually going to scam someone, it's like a bell curve where it just starts to drop off really, really quickly.
Right. Yeah, you know, like, for me to scam somebody would be so fucking nuts, right?
Yeah, because you're trying to maintain, I guess, an image or a reputation,
It's to
and
not have my investment be a complete waste.
all for you to throw that away for $300. It's just the dumbest of look, if it was $30,000, okay, but like for 300, because that's most of you're looking at, typically the scam's going to be around that $300 price range. It just ain't worth it.
Right. You know, it's like, I don't know, man. You need to find somebody who has something to lose by scamming you. You know what I mean?
It helps a lot, if you can find a reputable person, and sometimes, unfortunately, you're gonna have to make a call where there's a good deal that comes up, but it falls into that category of, well, maybe it's legit, but I just don't know, and I don't want to risk taking that chance and getting burned, all because I'm gonna risk it on an account that has 15, 20 followers, and their first post is a for sale ballad song.
Right. If the
Which
first word that they say is WTS.
now trades gets people. That's a dangerous one.
Right. And what would you suggest on that?
I've seen that one of the ways to mitigate it, and this kind of ties into the whole reputation thing. I've seen people use a third party, like an agreed upon third party. So say one person is worried that the other person isn't going to send theirs. They find an already established person in the community. Both people send it to that person. That person then sends it out to both people. I've seen that be used as a way to cut down on that problem of, well, I sent mine, and then the other person saying, oh, well, I haven't been able to get to the post office yet. No, I swear I'm going to get there. Oh, you want a tracking number? I don't have that yet. And then ghost, open message. Like, I've seen
Yeah.
that happen a lot too.
I would say at the first sign that something. Oh, the stream. Is the stream down? It says it's. I have no idea. I think the stream is still up. But anyway, it's like buffering. So I don't know what the deal is. But yeah, what was I gonna say?
About the proxy and the trade,
Hmm.
using a third party, trading, not getting screwed over.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It'll come back to me for sure, but yeah, I would say at the first sign that something is wrong, like the first sign that something is a little bit suspicious, you need to GTFO. Like,
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I'd even go as far to say, like, even though I think you'd kind of run into a "are you trying to scam someone" territory, I would almost say if you're really, really having second doubts about the legitimacy of that person, it might be your best bet to try and contact the whatever courier service and get them to cancel that shipment. And at the very worst, just say, "Oops, I'm sorry. Like, I got nervous. I'll send yours back immediately. Priority service, no problem."
yeah,
It's
and
just,
do send it back.
yeah, because then otherwise you become the scammer in that case very quickly.
Right, and if it shows up, then I mean, if you still want to do the trade, you can just you can continue the shipment kind of thing. But
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know. I think in a lot of the cases, I've seen people like there are enough red flags that they know of, but they just kind of were. It's called the normalcy bias, I believe, where they just kind of like they want to consider it like normal, and not unusual. Like, don't you have to respect yourself and your read of people enough to just like GTFO when something doesn't seem right.
And this kind of ties into another important factor. Uh, Oftentimes, I see some scams occur outside of like Instagram. So we're looking at Facebook groups where people start to feel safe in those groups, thinking that, oh, well, there's all these good people in the group. Surely nobody would try and attempt a scam. And unfortunately, that does bite some people in the butt. Now, typically in those groups, there will be a swift and immediate blacklisting of the individual that did the scam, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to attempt it. Like, it's same thing. Someone could just come up with a throwaway account on Facebook, go ahead, lure someone into the scam, and they could even play the long game. They could be in a group for 6 months, not do anything that whole 6 months, but you go on their profile, you see they've been a part of the group for 6 months. Maybe they've posted once or twice, and you kind of take that as, oh, well, surely they must be somewhat legitimate, and then boom, you're suckered in, and they can go ahead and bait you into a scam. And it's not to say that that's going to be the experience, but some people are willing to play the longer game. I mean, they could have multiple accounts. They could have 6 accounts that they started and they just place one in the group. Next month, place another one. Next month, place another one, and just wait and wait and wait and play the long game until they find someone that they think is gullible enough to fall for whatever they're trying to pull.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. Like, I feel like I'm going to be a little bit biased against doing trades and stuff because I just refused to do them until I needed a premium replicant, and I needed it like ASAP, right? But I was able to just, from people that I know, I was able to find one really quickly from somebody. You know who Matt Lacey is, right?
Yeah.
Well, I bought the premium replicant from him, and it showed up 2 days later or whatever, right? So it's like, you know, um, in those cases, you don't have to worry about anything, but at the same time, those people are probably going to be less like they're not necessarily going to be talked into selling a knife that they have because they might just want to keep the knife, right? And so I don't know. If you find somebody like that that's advertising the sale, that is the best case like scenario, right? But you're also going to have a lot of people that are like also aware of this sale, so there's competition. And so I think that, like, people being impatient, right?
Yeah,
That's
like
another thing.
was it the scarcity bias where they're like, "Oh, if I don't get this right now, if I don't send them my money or send the trade out right now, they're going to make a deal with someone else."
Right. And so it's like, I would personally say, like, do what I did and just have a limit to how, like, you need to have in mind the kind of person that you want to buy from, and don't change from that position, even if it
Good
takes
point.
time, you know? So, I don't know.
Because make no mistake, I mean, there's times where I've missed out on a ballad song that I've really wanted. Like, I've really wanted that ballad song, but I've just looked at the account, looked at the person, their page, and just made those decisions where I'm like, you know what? Another knife will come up. And the other thing about that, maybe that very same knife will come up. Suppose the sale goes swimmingly and there's not a single issue with the person that did it. Well, if the knife ever comes back up on the market, at least I'll know, hey, those two people had a good transaction. The person who purchased it is probably going to be a semi, I'd still got to be careful, but at least I'd be able to see, well, they have a track record. Maybe I'll consider purchasing something from them in the future.
Right. And the other thing that I would say, like, I definitely think the follower count that you have matters a lot, because if you have a lot of followers, then in a he said, she said situation, it's very obvious who's going to win. Right. And so,
Which can be bad, and this is a
in what
good
sense?
discussion. So, I mean, I guess okay, if you're talking about like an actual reputable person, then yes. But if it's kind of like, uh, I mean, it'd be a little bit hard to fake. I mean, like you can buy bots. I know that's a problem, but I guess if like I'm pretending that someone's like brand new to the community, like they don't really know too much about like the scamming tactics people use. So say like you're brand new to the community, you're just getting into flipping and you're thinking of buying your first expensive knife, and you see an account and they've got like 500 followers and they're only following like 50 people, and there's little old you with 20 followers, and them like using their followers as an intimidation tactic to be like, don't say anything, I didn't do that, no
No,
one's
I
gonna
meant it
believe
the
you.
other way. I meant, like, you should get out there and get followers. Like, make yourself a part of the community. I meant it the other way around.
I
Like,
see, I see.
if you have followers, then you're less likely to be scammed, I think. And to some extent, if you're brand new to the community, quite frankly, I don't think you're going to find, I mean, you're going to have a hard time finding a reputable person to buy from, because they're going to view you as sketchy as hell. And so, if you're a brand new account, you're, I don't know, man. I personally would not, if I were in that situation, I would not trade or buy secondhand. I just wouldn't, because I don't know. It
Well,
seems,
I would almost say that the way to do it might be, like if you really are having a hard time getting people to agree to do deals with you, it might be a situation where you want to look at having a third party enter that transaction. Now, what I will say is make sure that third party is not that person's friend agreeing to scam you. Make sure that person is actually a reputable person. Um, I wouldn't just take it as, oh well, I'm gonna ship you the knife. I'll pick the person to send it to, and yeah, then everything will be fine. No, no, it's like come to an agreed upon person that's reputable, that both of you agree is reputable.
yeah, I think middleman is the way to go in that situation. I personally, I just, there, you have to consider how you look too, right? Like, if you look like an account that doesn't have much to lose, then again, man, like, the people that are going to want to trade with you are people who want to take advantage of you. I that, in my opinion, because the people who are reputable, are not going to view you as reputable.
Yeah, they're going to want to see that you have some history of transactions. They're going to want to see that things went well. They're just going to want some proof that what you claim you've done, like you've actually done. Like, oh yes, I have purchased Balisong second hand before. They're going to want to see that you actually have. They're going to want to see, and it's going to help even more if that person that you bought it from was a reputable person. And I know it's a little bit hard to kind of get to that stage, but really, I mean, even one way to kind of get there is, like you said, engaging with those people. Engage with the people that you kind of want to be your, how do I say? It's kind of like when people say you can judge a person by the company they keep. Well, if you're in the community and you want to be in the buy and sell community, you might want to try and uh get on good terms with those people who are actively buying and selling,
But
because
the thing is, dude, you're also going to have scammers that do that. Like they have the exact same motive and they have the exact same idea, and it's why like I'm extremely careful about who I like. To some extent, if I follow somebody on my Scribble account, like it's kind of an endorsement. And so that's why I'm like very hesitant about following somebody, because I want to know, like, I, it's just I don't want somebody taking advantage of me, right? Because it has a secondary impact on my credibility.
exactly. And so to your point, it's like that's kind of a preliminary defense mechanism, but you still need to commit to those other ones. If it's too good to be true, perhaps using a middleman, those type of things you're still going to want to explore as options and not just take it as, I mean, because there was, oh man, if anyone in the chat knows this controversy, uh oh, I can't, I'm trying to remember, oh, what it was, like a group on Instagram that was supposed to be reputable people, and it's,
Flipaholics.
oh yep, people in the chat, if they remember that, they remember how that went.
How did
um
that end up? I know it all like crumbled, but how did that?
Oh, long X gone, lived up to his username. That dude
Oh
is
God!
long gone. Yep.
Did he take off with people's stuff?
I think what happened is somebody sent him a Balisong. I don't know if it was going to be a trade or if it was just an outright purchase, but basically the person never got their money or their trade, and then he just dipped, like just straight dipped.
Yeah, I know. I know that I got added to that stupid group or whatever, and I frankly I found it kind of useless. Like it didn't seem to me like there was any real vetting going on, right? Like I never got the impression that it was safer than just, I don't know, picking people out of the general public to buy from.
I really liked the idea of it, but I agree. One of the reasons why I wasn't as much as an endorser of it towards the end, especially, was because I saw that they were pretty much anyone that said that they had three good trades happen, all of a sudden was basically one of their what they call it, certified member or whatever. And I'm like, that's, I don't know, like you could really kind of fudge those a fair bit,
Well,
and
they didn't
maybe,
ask me anything, and I had 200 followers at the time or something.
oh, it's, yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, yeah. It got pretty out of hand at the end, and I guess the guy just figured now's the time to cash out.
Yeah, exit scam.
Yeah, but that just goes to show for the people listening. I mean, you could have this entity, and the worst part about it is there could be legitimate people that just happen to get involved in it, and they kind of use, these people will use legitimate people as a way to prop themselves up and gain themselves credibility, so that when they decide that they're going to pull out, it's almost out of nowhere. That's another dangerous part of it where it's like, just because there's this group, just because there's members of this group who are legitimate, doesn't necessarily mean that that person at the other end that you're trading with or you're buying from is legitimate.
Right, and you have no guarantee that what they're saying is even true. Like that I'm sure that there are people out there who claim that they know me because they sent me like a message or something, right? And
Oh,
so you can't just because somebody claims to be BFFs with somebody does not mean that they are. First off, and second, you may disagree with this, but I personally would say it doesn't matter to me where you meet somebody. You can't take where you met them into account for their credibility. I don't buy into those groups. I just don't. I think that if you have a group where everybody in it is meant to be legit, that also becomes a target for scammers to get in that group because then they can make some kind of big scam, right? So it inevitably doesn't work, in my opinion. So
there's flaws to it, and the reason why we kind of are really harping on it is because if you forget about those flaws, you can open yourself up to being scammed.
right,
Uh,
that's what they do. They want you to forget about it.
exactly, because oh, this is a trusting group. So many people are having a good time. Oh, there's these other legitimate people. And you know the worst part about that is those legitimate people may genuinely have no idea what this person's plotting. There could be this other person in the group and they could think that everything's hunky dory, and next thing you know, their scam just occurred.
Right.
So you have to remember these things when making deals online, because if you don't, you might be getting taken for a ride pretty quickly.
Right. I would say it's the same as in real life. And this again is a little bit kind of backtracking, I guess, but um, just like in real life, if something to you seems off, you need to trust your gut instinct. Like because you're picking up on stuff subconsciously that you're not even aware of, you know? So,
And to kind of go off that, you could just kind of take a mental note of it and then look into what you thought was off. Like ask yourself, well, why am I feeling off about this person? And then actually look into it a little bit more, because you might validate your suspicion. You might go ahead and look at their account and say, "Oh wow, why I got really kind of carried away here. This account does look suspect." Yeah, it seemed like a great deal, but I'm looking at this person. I don't know who this is. Nobody knows who this is. I can't find any, they have no reputation. I don't know when they joined the community. I don't know anything about them. You can kind of validate your suspicions. You can kind of just take mental note of it. You don't have to up in arms say, I'm ending it right here and now. But if you are going to kind of give that moment of a benefit of the doubt, actually look into it. Look into it. Um, before going any further.
right. It's a little bit like be careful how much you're trusting somebody that you just met. You know, like maybe they might have their neighbor's kittens in their freezer. You don't know, right?
Exactly.
So it's a little bit. You probably don't want to start out by going out into the woods with them when nobody knows where you are. That might not be a good move, right? Same kind of thing applies with trades and stuff online. So
That is certainly not a pro gamer move. Um,
right.
but this made me think of a very nefarious scam tactic that someone used. I mean, it was almost, I think, 2, 3 years ago now. Basically, and this one is a clever one, and boy, oh boy, it was 8 people listening. Watch out for this one. So, if someone has decent editing skills, they can go ahead and make it look like a DM occurred or a text message occurred that did not,
Very easily.
very easily. And somebody used this tactic where the person was getting suspicious of the scammer. They're getting very suspicious, and they said, "Oh, can you provide a reference?" Well, my account was listed as a reference, and they said, "Well, can you send a picture like of your conversation, or can you send some proof?" And they sent a DM, except it was a doctored DM. They went ahead in Photoshop and put my profile picture, put my username, and then just faked what I said in the back and forth in the DM. And that person unfortunately fell for that, because later I was messaged, "Do you know this person?" And I said, "No."
Right,
Like,
you should be look, it's like hearsay in like a legal sense, right? Like you can look and read through that screenshot kind of thing, but you need to go verify it, right? Like you can't just take them at their word that the content of that conversation is accurate, right? So and they can even just change a few messages and it completely changes the meaning, right? So
oh yeah, it's something that, and that one I think is actually a little bit easier to fall for than some of the other things we talked about, where I mean, you might see a big name and you might be like, "Oh man, if this person did a deal with them, surely I'm not even gonna bother to ask if it's valid." I mean, right off rip, that's got to be, that's got to be a good golden deal. This is perfect, and just like that, you got taken for $300.
right. I would say like I don't know, man. What I've found is well, never mind. I just yeah. I wouldn't I guess I think I'm just a very cynical person. Like I don't you know, I don't know, man. When I was a kid, I was really manipulative, right? And
Well, I
so
think a good gauge for this, and I want to come back to that when you were a kid part, but this might tie into where I'm going with it. If you played RuneScape, old school RuneScape, remember remember what tactics people used in that game to try and take you for all your gold or your armor or your
yeah, on a
weapons in
different
that game?
topic though. You want me to trim your armor?
Yeah. Oh, perfect. You can and what do I have to do? I just got to give you all my
Oh,
armor.
just like 1,000 GP, nothing
Oh,
special.
just perfect. Great.
Yeah.
And if you've played old school RuneScape, use that knowledge of what happened to you. Go back when you were 5, 6, 7. Go back and recall what tactics people used to talk you, to sweet talk you into giving them your entire bank, and carry that knowledge over to doing actual real world deals.
I back to the thing though. Like I would say when I was a kid, I was manipulative, and like when you've been like that, you just pick up on it, right? And the reality is, don't do that because you just end up feeling like shit about yourself, right? But I don't know. I guess that kind of makes me like cynical. Like if I see somebody saying something, I have questions about why they're saying certain things sometimes, right? And it's part of why I can read people relatively well. And so when I have these people that are trying to play games with me, right? At like I made some posts recently, it's like it's really easy to see through. So
Mm.
I might just be being cynical, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make. But that's how I am. I'm just skeptical of everybody, you
I
know?
think that's probably the tactic anyone buying, selling, trading. I think that's the perspective that you'd want to take. Be cynical. Just say this trade, this deal might go wrong. Why might it go wrong? Let me look into the reasons why it might go wrong. And it's not to deter you from going ahead and pursuing a trade or a buy or a sell, but just to put your guard up so that when you see a red flag, you don't just go whizzing by it and saying, I mean, I'm sure it's no big deal. You go buy the second red flag. You know what? This happens all the time. Third red flag. I mean, like, he's probably telling the truth. Like, put your guard up so that when these red flags do appear in front of you, you actually acknowledge them and say, "Ooh, do I actually want to move forward knowing what I know now?"
Yeah, and you need to not underestimate how quickly these people can come up with explanations for stuff, right? And I would say actually a fantastic example of this. Um, let me see. It's on my profile. Yeah, it's on my profile. It's a highlight series, and it's just called Fraud. This is a guy that used a a stolen credit card on my website. And the interesting thing is, I told my dad immediately after this guy had DM'd me, this guy's going to scam me. Although I didn't think he would use a stolen credit card. I thought he was going to do a chargeback, right? But I told my dad because this guy was trying way too hard to be my friend and way too complimenting of the handles and stuff. And it was unusual. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's going to end up scamming me. But it's like, you know, you can't just go around accusing people of that kind of thing, right? And turns out that there was some guy in Louisiana that, I think it was Louisiana, that, you know, had his credit card stolen. And if you read through this guy's messages, you will find that he comes up with an explanation for everything. But there are things that stand out. One of them being, you know, like he says, oh, sorry, I just got back from the children's hospital. My sister.
Oh, Jesus.
Right. It's like, look, you don't go to a children's hospital to have children. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the children's hospital is for children who need a fucking hospital pretty badly, right?
Well, what I was saying with that more so is, like, it's those pull at your heartstrings. Oh, I had an emergency.
Oh, yeah.
It was this big thing. I'm so sorry. Yeah. If that's the opening line to your further questioning, I would just end the deal right then and there.
I would say, go on.
Well, the reason why I would say that is because, like, I've seen it used too much, and maybe it's true, but, like, I don't know. I don't really tell unless the person's asking me, like, what the cause of delay is, and it's like a very pressing matter. I wouldn't just start with, oh, I was doing this thing that is completely irrelevant to what the question's about. Like, oh, I was over here doing this, doing that. And it's like, okay, but this isn't relevant to what I just asked. Like, you're trying to make it seem like it's relevant, but it's not.
Right. You know, I guess the other, like, if you read through that conversation, the other main thing that I think you should take away from it is just look at how quickly people like that come up with an explanation that sounds plausible. What you'll find is inevitably you'll start to see inconsistencies because they just can't make all the lies work. But that's also the exact reason why, if one of these people ever watches this, it, like, your entire life, you don't even know what is true about yourself and what isn't, right? It's miserable to be one of these people going around and just, you know, coming up with excuses, making claims about stuff that you know are not true, right? So just be aware that people like that can come up with an excuse that sounds plausible. If you find that they're in a situation where they have to come up with an explanation for something more than once, don't trade or anything for sure. Like, just don't, you know. So I don't know.
Well, even to kind of go off that, if someone's trying to manipulate your emotions through kind of like, oh, well, I was at a children's hospital, I was doing volunteer work, I saved this person from a car crash, they needed help, I say, like, those are all things to maybe it's a unicorn, maybe it's true, but I mean, if it's this constant emotional manipulation, man, that is a huge, huge red flag that you should not ignore. And again, what we've talked about, the scammers already know these tactics and they employ them, and they're pretty damn good at them in a lot of cases. So we're not telling anything these people don't already know, but you have to remember when you're going through a trade, going through a deal, these are all things that you can run into very quickly, very, very quickly.
Yeah, you need to understand that these people, like, this is not the only aspect of their life that they do this in. This is a significant part of their life. They do this all the time. It's just not necessarily scamming in every situation, but it's dishonesty, it's manipulation. Like, you need to understand that you are competing, like, mentally, I suppose, with somebody who does this all the time, right? So it's not going to be obvious to you every time. It just isn't. So, you know.
And to even really drive that point home, I've been in some groups with very serious traders, like very, very serious traders that have had dozens of trades go well, dozens of deals go well. Every now and then, I see one of those guys that has had 30 deals go perfectly well. Every now and then, I see that person say, had an experience with someone that scammed me straight up. And they'll go through the details. They'll typically post, so other people know, like, here's the name, here's the address that was given to me. Although typically that address is a burner address. So that's what kind of sucks there. And the name might not even be real either. But every now and then, even these very experienced traders, I see one of them get burned. So, I mean, to really kind of go off what you said, these are, some of them are kind of like stupid. There's some stupid scammers.
Yeah, there are kids that do it because they
Yeah.
just don't. I will say, I have a degree in cybersecurity, and one of the things that you need to understand is, first off, if somebody is dead set on getting into something, they're going to get into it, right? Like, not necessarily them, but eventually, like, they will. And it's just because you can't keep every single avenue of attack, like, secured, right? I mean, that's why you have Stuxnet, So Stuxnet being like a really famous malware that got into this Iranian facility, but the point is that there was no outside connections. It's called, I think, an air gap or something. And so the way that they got it in there was they had infected the computers of the service technicians or whatever. And so when they went in and they plugged a USB in, it infected the entire plant, basically. But it's the same here. Like, you can't, if the moment that you think you are, like, too good to get scammed, you're going to get scammed. Because that kind of arrogance, you start, like, I don't know, you start getting complacent. You start thinking that, like, you're just that great. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. To the people who want to hear it in some kind of academic context, there you go. So,
yeah, no, that's a good point, and it's really goes to show, those master manipulators take advantage of the fact that, maybe 9 out of 10 of those scammers are some super inexperienced person that's just preying on the dumbest of the dumb. And, if you're an experienced trader, you might say, okay, yeah, push on, dude, go find another victim. But those master manipulators, they prey on someone just being so confident in their ability to send somebody out that the second they get that lapse of judgment, they're in. It's that type of thing. It's not to scare people, but it's just to say, I mean, you're dealing with $300, $400, $500, sometimes more. And oftentimes, I consider that to be a good deal of money. I think most people would agree. So you really want to treat it like that. You're not just throwing $30 away. You could be throwing $300 away.
right. By the way, can we go on a quick tangent that I think you're going to get a kick out of?
Oh, of course.
So, essentially what Stuxnet did was they had these centrifuges, and they would vary the speed, and essentially what they'd end up doing is they would get it, vibrating at whatever resonant frequency that particular assembly had, and then they would slow it down, and as the frequency decreased, the amplitude would increase, right? And so, but the way that this worked is because it took advantage of the fatigue properties of the aluminum rotors. So when you're wanting to make nuclear bombs, don't use aluminum. There, that's all. Yeah, I just thought you might like that.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
I'm trying to think of any other big red flags to look out for. I mean,
if they're rushing you,
uh yeah, if they're pressuring you now, to be fair, I have used some tactics like that in order to get a deal going sooner than later. And let me disclose what that tactic is. Because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste someone else's time. One thing I'll say is I'm willing to pay this amount of money. If you want to move forward with the deal, all well and good. But I'm after 24 hours, I'm going to take the deal off the table.
I've rushed people too, but it's something that you need to be aware of when it starts happening. Like when you become aware of the fact that they're rushing you, you should look at the situation with a bit more scrutiny, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, like so for example, I've sent that message to people. Some of those trades have gone down, some of them have not. But they could have looked at that and said 24 hours. Geez, that seems kind of short. I'm not going to do that deal. The reason why I do it though, and that's perfectly okay for them to say, you know what, I feel like this guy's trying to pressure me. I'm not going to do it. But the reason why I do it is mainly because a lot of times I
Other
know some of
people
these
are waiting.
well, these people are looking to get more money. Like they might want to sell it for say 500, and I'm saying I'm throwing out an offer for 450. You have this deal for 24 hours. I don't feel like playing the game of, oh, well, after, not hearing from this person for a couple days and then them maybe saying, oh, I'll move forward with the deal. And then them all of a sudden getting a DM and saying, oh, actually, this person's going to pay more. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm trying to skip that stupid crap. And I'm saying, you got 24 hours, think it over. If you don't want to sell it for that, I don't care.
Yeah,
But
I
here's the
might
offer.
be. Maybe I'm wrong. I might. I will say that rushing somebody in certain contexts would be bad, but I don't know that there's actually an effective way to list what, like, when you should consider that to be a red flag. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I guess I just viewed that more as not manipulation, negotiation, right?
Yeah,
But
I'd say that's more negotiation.
right, it's like, look, like or like make the deal or not, right? Like I view that as negotiating,
Exactly.
but the reality is you're still rushing them, right? So I don't think that there's an effective way for me to distinguish. So I think I retract my claim.
Well, I might not say like, oh, you got to accept the deal in the next 5 minutes or it's gone. Like that
You give them at
is,
least 6 minutes.
yeah, of course. But that type of situation is, or if you're like, if you're following up to the DM, you're sending another DM, you're sending another DM, sending another DM. Like, are you going to trade? Is this good? Or are you going to accept? Like that type of thing, I would be like, dude, you're annoying me. I don't even care if you're legit at this point. I don't even care. This is off the table.
Right. Like there are, if for the most part, I sell to basically anybody. But if there's somebody who is being like, I don't know, an asshole or dishonest or something, and they're wanting to buy some specific thing, I just won't sell it to them sometimes because I'm an asshole. Like, I don't know.
But
But
that's at the discretion of you being the person
asshole.
selling, well, or that. But you're the person selling. It's up to you to decide who you want to sell to.
Well, I would
Realistically,
say the first misrepresentation or lack of integrity kind of thing that you see, you're done. Just done. Don't go any farther, because if they're misrepresenting one thing, then why would they not be misrepresenting other stuff?
oh, absolutely.
So I think that there should be like a zero tolerance thing on that kind of stuff. Like if they say that it includes the latch, then later they say, oh, actually, it doesn't have a latch. Don't trade.
Oh, yeah. If all of a sudden, and that's, oh man, what a good point. What a good point.
Dude, every
If
point I make is fucking amazing. Except the rushing one and then a lot of the other ones.
I was gonna say, but that's a great point. If all of a sudden, you're expecting one thing, the deal's moving forward, and all of a sudden, oh, but actually, I don't have this. Oh, well, I said I had the box, I don't have the box. Oh, I said that all the screws were fine. Actually, some of them are completely stripped. Oh,
Yeah, if you see Phillips head screws on it, fucking run.
but if the deal starts changing, it's like I altered the deal. Pray I do not alter it further. Do not pass go back out of that deal because that's just the things they're willing to tell you. There's things that's probably hidden that they're not telling you. Um, so I would say that's a good thing to look out for. If all of a sudden the deal starts getting altered after the deal's kind of been made, just no, cancel,
Right.
done, out.
But I would say, can we agree that all the points that I make that are not bad points are actually good points?
No, we've made a lot of good points here.
No, I'm poking fun. But yeah, I mean, I would say, even if like it would work out in the end, it's like if they say one thing and it changes, especially if it's something like, oh, sorry, it doesn't include a latch. It's like, well, what happened to the latch in the last 24 hours, dude?
Uh-huh.
I mean, maybe they were hungry, but like, I don't see why they would just lose a latch.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, no, it's like I agreed to this deal initially. You're changing it on me. I'm not. I don't want to deal with this any further. You're changing the deal. Well, are you going to change the price too? Like, yeah, that's kind of where. And I guess you could kind of go down the negotiation route, but to me, it's almost a sign of disrespect that somebody would all of a sudden alter the deal after they misrepresented what was going to be a part of that deal. You know, if
Oh
they're
yeah,
saying it's going to be this complete knife, and all of a sudden it's a knife missing the latch, and they still want the same amount of money.
even if they want a different amount of money, dude, they said it had a latch. They said it had a latch. If they no longer have the option of selling you a latch, don't trade them. Like, don't do anything with them because they lied, dude.
Yeah, they altered the deal. Exactly.
Right. So I would say don't. That would be like a major no for me. And I know we talked about it, but bad pictures and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, that should be a given. Yeah, bad pictures, blurry pictures.
If they won't take a picture of some part of the knife, like the latch on a 42 or something.
Yep. Even video. I mean, I know video is a little bit more of a kind of now you're being a little bit of a pain, but I mean, like if they really want to make the deal, they could say pound sand. But then if they say pound sand, maybe you don't move forward with the deal. It's one of those things where they have all the options in the world to say, piss off, I'm not going to do this. You're wasting my time. I'm not going to take a picture, take a video. Here's what you can see, take it or leave it. But then that's kind of a way for you to measure, well, do I want to move forward with this deal? Like, there's a good in between, but if they're really playing hardball and their pictures suck, like maybe just don't just stop messaging them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say the other thing, and I know we've talked about this, but like, you always will find that when somebody is a scammer and they get caught or they get called out, they'll try sometimes to backpedal and make it right because they'd rather not lose, their reputation or whatever. And so when it becomes public, and this happened with NZ Customs, right? He's like saying that he had autism and stuff, and kept coming up with excuses. Oh, my grandfather's, like missing his legs, so he can't drive me to USPS, right? Like he would just come up with random shit like that. And it's the same with that Refogo guy that I showed you. So. Well, look, Noah M. There's no point in trying to deal with that. Does it have tap? Does it not have tap? Shit, because it has nothing to do with the knife itself. It just doesn't. It's like, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased saying that because but I don't know, man. Like, you don't need anything too crazy to tune bushings. You just don't. Like, you don't need a fucking machine shop. And so that's one thing. Second, like, who's to say that they wouldn't get it, do a shit job assembling it and Loctiting it, and then claim that you lied to them, right? It's just a bogus thing. Like, if they're that, like, fucking
that's
neurotically
yeah.
focused on tap, I'd be careful. I don't know.
Yeah, if someone's kind of going down that route, because then they might try and slam your reputation.
Just because they
Eh,
suck at assembling knives.
Yeah, though, man, that's the other part of trades, and that's not even a flat out scam. It's just someone trashing you for getting what you didn't maybe you didn't like you represented what you had perfectly, but then this person is just deciding that they're gonna grief you, and say, oh, they sold me a lemon, they knew, they didn't tell me. And see, that's
Hashtag lemon law.
and I didn't want it to end up here, but sometimes the best thing to do is just buy from a reputable online dealer. Sometimes that really is the best thing to do. You know,
That's all I've ever done.
I mean, the majority of my purchases, I've purchased over 18 balisongs.
Oh,
A cou
wow.
Yes, but a couple of them were direct from maker, a couple were direct from maker. I think it was 4 were from trades, and then the rest were from online dealer. So, over 50% were just from an online dealer like, Blade HQ, a Knife Center, those type of companies. It's so much simpler. It really is. If something goes wrong, I can like if it shows up and I'm like, wow, this is completely busted, like I could send it back and I could pretty much expect that I will actually get my money returned.
Right, like
Um
there are almost no people. I don't know that I'm trying to think of cases where I've actually sent somebody my knife, but there's like I would send my knife to almost nobody, right? Like just because even a lot of people, even when they mean well, they'll end up doing something fucking stupid, right?
mm,
Um, and it's like, look, I don't want to send my knife to somebody unless I know I'm gonna get it back, right? Like if I
yeah.
send you my Alpha Beast, which we talked about, I gotta put another edge on it and then send it. But like, it's not like I'm like, oh man, I'm a little bit nervous sending this because I might never get it back. It's like that, right? So I don't know. I guess I feel like maybe I'm giving bad advice because I think I might be too like cynical, but like I would not trade with somebody unless there were just like I just knew that they weren't gonna scam me, right?
Well, and that's another thing though. Like for each person, you can take on whatever amount of risk that you want. So if you want to go balls to the wall, full on risk, you can just go right into that deal, jump head first in that deal, and say, here's the money.
Right, you could be the guy that gets exit scammed. That's the reality. Like you could just trust somebody and you're like, oh, and again, like I said, like I understand there's the irony of me saying like I wouldn't send it to somebody that I didn't know that I would get it back from when I said the previous stuff about security, but the point I'm trying to get across is like I trust them enough that like I don't know, you would bet $550 or whatever that they're gonna send it back. I guess that's really what
Well,
it
yeah,
comes down to.
you're taking from your perspective all the steps that you possibly can to mitigate the risk, so that if the chance if it did occur, it would be a wow, that was actually pretty shocking type situation, as opposed to I should have seen that coming. Like there's such a big difference in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think really you got to think of it in like a literal sense of what you're doing, right? Like, would you bet, I don't know, $550? And I would say probably the reason I'm like super cynical is I value my knives a lot more than just market value because they have sentimental value. All my knives
That's
do,
true.
right? And so it's like, would you bet huge sum of money that you will get this knife back? Right? Or, the trade will go through, I suppose. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's really what you're doing is you're making a bet. And it's like you need to understand that you're making that bet. Like you're not walking out of a store with a knife in your hand that you just paid cash for. Like, that's not what's happening. You're trusting that you're going to end up getting something in the mail.
Exactly.
So I don't know. And I know, Noah, I would say, like, and I'm sure that we could rant about this for ages, but like tap is it's just going to be there. Like, at the end of the day, you will end up, every single knife with use will have tap, with the exception of, I mean, even bearings, like you would after a very long time. But, I guess, do the bearings ride on phosphor bronze washers or something? Because if so,
I think people use different materials.
they use nylon.
I don't know if there's a standard that I've seen.
They might use nylon. But anyway, the point is, every single thing, like, the reality of life is that material ends up getting wear on it. It just does. And that wear changes the dimensions. So, there's a few things you can do. You can cry about it, right? That's what I would do, right? You can suck it up and not be offended by tap, not like have your ego get damaged by it. Or you can replace the part that is wearing. Like, the parts.
Whoa, buddy. Hey, guy. Whoa.
Don't assume my gender, please.
That makes a little too much sense now, don't you think?
Okay, fair enough. We could throw some fractions in there and maybe fuck it all up.
You mean maintenance? You want me to maintain my knife?
Actually, you're right. That's asking quite a lot.
That, I don't think that should be an expectation here. Why is it up to me?
Well, actually, to some extent, I get people who will ask, although this is not common, I will have people ask me, like, will it have tap? Like, how much play will it have? And there's no way for me to answer that. Like, any answer that I give other than there's no way for me to know is a lie, which is why I say there's no way for me to know. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be making false promises to people. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, look, can I tell a quick story? Actually, you go ahead, because this might take a little while.
Well, all I was going to say is a good reply to how much tap does it have is basically how many loaves of bread have you eaten in your life? Like, I don't know.
Are you fat shaming me?
Do I get our channel canceled, or do I commit?
Oh, I'm so sick of whatever keeps disconnected on my computer. Dude, it keeps making this fucking beep.
That's odd.
Oh my god. I have to use this USB tracker thing. But anyway, I was at the part-time job that I'm doing, and this guy, when he found out that I had a CNC machine and a bunch of other tools, is like, he wanted to get a bunch of stuff done. And I was basically saying, like, well, I mean, I could do that. I could make a titanium this. I could, but it will cost a lot, and you're not going to really benefit from it. And what the guy ended up saying after, a few minutes of this conversation, with him asking if I could make different things, and me basically saying, like, I could, but I don't think it's worth the money to you. He was like, man, you need to work on your sales, such and such, your sales pitch. And he doesn't realize that I'm not trying to sell him something. What I'm trying to do is what I do with handles. I want people at the end of the day to be happy. Like, I want them to walk away happy, right? And so it's like, the reality is I probably could have said something there to convince him to hand me money, right? But at the end of the day, he's not going to be happy. Like, he'll end up regretting it. And the only way that he would get me to accept an order for something like this is if he convinced me that not only did he know that there was virtually no benefit, but that it was worth the money for that virtually no benefit. And I just don't think he could convince me of that. I just don't think, because people never look. I have people who will message me and they'll be like, hey, how much does it cost to get this made? And I'll say $3,000. And they'll be offended, which is a consistent thing. Like, they'll think I'm trying to, like, scam them or like pull the wool over their eyes or something. And it's like, no, that's just how much it costs. That's why I don't make handles for tons of knives. It costs money to develop a product. So I don't remember where I was going with this, but like the point is, at the end of the day, I'm trying to have people be happy, right? Which is why I don't say it'll have no tap. You know? I don't know.
I'm trying to. I think I know what you were going for there, but yeah, the man, that's really. That's got to be so annoying for someone to basically be like, I want you to make something. You say respectfully, I decline, and then them say, you got to work on your sale. Like, you're not my target audience. You're not like, what? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. I think he probably would go around and he's wanting to get sales. I mean, he runs a business, right? So he's probably used to trying to get sales.
Yeah.
I just do it differently. Because I don't know. This is why I guess I'm a bad business person. Is like I just don't. At the end of the day, I want to feel like what I've done has been a net positive to the world. You know what I mean? Like I've added more good than I've taken away or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
you got a little bit more to add there.
okay, you know what, dude? I'm gonna need an apology, a Starbucks gift card.
Oh no! Don't make me do that. No, just forget about it. Just cancel me now.
Yeah. Oh, cancel you. Twitter rage incoming. But no, like, I guess that's the thing is like, look for somebody who is not only saying things that like, I don't know, maybe that's not the case because I guess there are plenty of people who would only say positive things about what they're trying to sell that are not going to scam you outright. But like, I don't know, just try to find people who are not doing that kind of thing. I guess that doesn't really make sense, but
this train has fully gone off the right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to explain like things that I think of, and I don't always have a good way to do it. So
next stop, bad analogy.
Okay,
town.
You know what, dude? I am quite sick of being verbally cyber assaulted.
Whoa,
okay?
You could just turn your computer off.
This is verbal cyber battery at this point.
Press the power button. You know where it is.
Don't tempt me, because I will. I will.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, like, I don't know, man. I feel like you need to, as a buyer, you need to understand the limitations of what is out there. Right? If you're like, oh, I want to buy a such and such with no tap, it's like, good luck, dude, because for all you know, this one that has a 1/4 inch of handle play has just been assembled by a 10-year-old and actually would have fantastic handle play if it were assembled correctly. You don't know. You're trusting the work of some random person on the internet to determine the quality of something that you're buying. Like, you need to also be convinced of their ability to assemble stuff correctly. Like, even I don't assemble things perfectly every time. It takes time, first off, and second, there's actual like practice involved. Right?
That's actually a really good point. So as a buyer, if you get something that looks like you got sold a lemon, it may be exactly what you're saying, where the knife is actually otherwise good. It's just, it was assembled like doo-doo, like just straight doo-doo stains.
Right.
So, maybe that's a moment of, let me give the benefit of the doubt for a split second. Maybe let me try looking at what's going on here. Does it look like something's put together incorrectly? And then if that kind of is the case, maybe just have a little bit of a moment of reflection and kind of say, well, maybe let me learn how to fix this. And then moving on in any further trades, this is something I look out for.
Yes, and you need to know what you can be gentle, what you need to be gentle with, and what you don't need to be gentle with. Okay, and this is something that I've had happen specifically on 32 and 51 scales that I make, right? What you have happen is people want to be really gentle because they just got this thing in the mail that cost them like as much as the knife itself, right? And so they're really, really gentle putting it all together, which is a good thing. But sometimes, like for example, to get the, okay, if you've never had a 32 or a 51 apart, what they have is they have at the kind of below the head of the pivot is like they have these like spline things, like these little lines that go along the lengthwise thing. And what that's meant to do is it's meant to dig into the G10 on the original scales and allow you to tighten the screws without the pivot barrel itself spinning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those also need to get jammed into the titanium, right? And the only way that I would be able to like decrease that kind of is if I actually increase the diameter of the hole. But then I would be choosing which side they go on and stuff. Like there's no way for me to do that effectively and still have a decent product at the end. And so you have to tighten it enough that you seat those pivot barrels in, right? So you don't always need to be gentle. Now, if you're using a screwdriver, especially something like a Weehaw, which is going to be really sharp and really like, I mean, hard and decent quality, that also will scratch the shit out of the surface of the handles, right? So I don't know, but that's something I've personally found from people where they've been concerned about handle play and stuff on something that I bought is, I mean, those complaints are almost entirely with the 51 and 32 series, and it's just because they're not seated. And so, again, I guess it comes to, like, you're trusting, obviously it's different on, like, a stock knife, but, like, you're trusting that whoever you're trying to buy this Alpha Beast from knows how to assemble the Alpha Beast correctly, or if they bought it used and they didn't disassemble it, that this unknown person that they probably don't even remember assembled it correctly.
Exactly, and that's huge. And it's one of those things kind of, I wouldn't say it's like an outright scam, but like you could end up being sold a lemon even though it's not a lemon. It's basically in its condition it's a lemon, but if you knew what was wrong with it, you might actually be able to correct it. It still doesn't justify the fact that somebody basically lied about the condition of it. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, just because it's in that current condition doesn't mean it's not a simple fix.
Yeah, but it also means don't discount something that somebody's selling just because it has tap.
That as well.
You might be getting a 9 out of 10 knife for the price of an 8 out of 10 or 7.5 out of 10 knife.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. Do you have anything else on the tap subject and the, people assembling?
We've beaten that to death. There's like two certainties in life: tap and taxes. Or did I get that right?
I have no idea. But that would mean that tap replaces death, which I think is fitting. I don't know. Look, man, at the end of the day, when you're buying something used, you're just gonna have to. You're taking a risk. You just are, man. Like, that's the reality of it. And you are when you buy a new knife too. It's just you're trusting that whoever is making or having these knives made is assembling them well. There isn't a guarantee of that. Okay.
That's true. I think the bigger trust there is oftentimes makers will want to, if there is a genuine problem, they'll want to make it right. Whereas third-party seller might say, "Hey, look, man, that's how it was. You knew this. I said it." And then they might go down that route, and they're not gonna there's no brand name for them to back up. No, oh, I hope they might not care if you ever want to buy from them again. Meanwhile, a company might be like, "Well, yes, we actually do care."
Well, the thing that scares the shit out of me is one of these people who I've actually become friends with. I had asked him, a week or something after he had gotten his 51 scales in, what he thought of them. And he was like, "Oh, they're great, blah, blah, blah. The only thing I think would need improvement is handle play. And so I'd asked, if he had a video, and I was like, holy fuck, that is not the handle play that is supposed to be there, right? Like, that is not, like, it was like, holy shit, like, if I hadn't contacted this person, like, this issue would never have been resolved. And again, it was just the seating of those pivot barrels. But it's like, I don't know how many other people have had trouble with something and they don't realize that they've had trouble with it, right? Like, they just think that they're aftermarket handles, so there's gonna be extra handle play or whatever. And at least for my stuff, no, there should be like almost none. Like, it should be like somewhere around what it was before you put my stuff on it. So that's my fear, right? Is that there are people out there who don't even realize that, there's some simple fix to something.
Exactly. And that's always, I guess it's kind of like one of those things where, at least with a maker or a company, you can kind of turn to them and ask them for, guide. Like, I've actually sent an email to BRS once to say, hey, look, I'm pretty sure I screwed up taking apart. And actually, I think it was it was in reference to the knife that when I was putting on the handle scales for the replicant, I also contacted them and just said, just to make sure I'm doing this right. And typically, a maker is going to walk you through how to do something. They're not. That's the benefit of buying direct from a maker, direct from a maker, not so much a retailer, but at least when it's direct from a maker, they're typically going to want you to have a good experience. And if you do have a problem, as long as it's something that's actually solvable, they'll try and walk you through it.
Right. Yeah. And if there's something that's wrong with it, then if they're honest, then they'll fix it. Right.
So, yeah. Like, if it's an honest mistake, like, oh, shoot, no, that should not have gotten out the door.
Right. And it's a pretty small number because I'm like neurotically upset by imperfections, which is like, I get that sounds like, I don't know, bragging or something. It's not really. Like, that is a huge problem for me to some extent, because I will get way too caught up on having absolutely perfect such and such, and then never actually get them made, right? Like,
well, I think a good analogy here, and if you're okay with it, it's almost like with the engraving, and I just need to bring it up because I just do it more often, and every couple days I'm doing it a little bit more downstairs. But when I engrave something, I'm using a microscope, and so I might see an imperfection at like 10 times zoom that I'm like, oh man, I wish I could really correct that. But to the human eye, like, just looking at it, you would never pick up on it. Like, you might look at it and say, what's wrong with it? If I'm like, but good question. And if I bust out my handy dandy 20 times zoom microscope, I can point you to the problem.
Yeah, Doug, look at this. This is a piece of shit. Do better.
But it's kind of like one of those things where it's not that you want to skimp on the quality, but it's like, in some situations, I mean, man, you need like a mic. And in my case, you need a microscope, but maybe in your case, maybe you would, I don't know.
Need the naked eye.
Yeah, to just the normal eye, you're going to look at it and say, that what's wrong with it? I don't understand.
Right. Well, the reality is, like, when I've seen literally hundreds of these handles, an anomaly is going to stick out more to me than to somebody who's only seen 4 of them. Right. So
for sure.
There's that aspect too. I also know what to look for at each individual stage. Like, I know if something goes wrong at this stage, this is how it will manifest itself, right? Like, this is how the problem will show up. And so, but yeah, I mean, the reality is, look, like, this is something that and actually I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I don't test assemble handles before I ship them out in almost every case. And the reason is, and this is something, again, like I feel like really mixed feelings on. Like I feel like for hundreds of dollars, you'd want some kind of verification that it fits or whatever. But what I've found is, like, I won't have a problem with fit like that. In the vast majority of cases, you won't have a problem with fit like that without some other major problem showing up as well, like in the machining. But also, I have found that, like, I'll have a perfect ano or like a fantastic finish on something that I'm like happy with, and then I'll scratch it because I'm a fucking idiot. I'm like a sped, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know if there is too much to say. I mean, like, it's just one of those things where, like, the likelihood of a problem occurring is always there, but, like, I don't know. You kind of went through it pretty in depth there.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's something that I've kind of wondered because I feel like really mixed feelings. Like if there was no risk of damage to them, I think I'd be more likely to test them. But
even if you did test them, there's a chance that, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess the chance of there actually being a problem from there is kind of completely diminished. But
well, I guess it actually speaks for itself. Like I've had practically no issues like with where somebody's had to return something. I mean, that's like I count on one hand number of times kind of thing. So I guess I don't really need to, but like it's still one of those things that it's nice to say that, like, oh, I tested it, it was fine here kind of thing.
yeah, it's kind of like, was it basically your first time right, is kind of what I'd probably put that as. Your first time right of handles has been probably high on your end. So it's not as though 50% of the time you're sending handles out that you're getting a reply saying they don't fit. It's like, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm assuming it's like 95+%, where you get it right, everything's fine. So it's like, well, why would you test something that is not coming back with issues? Like, I guess, yeah, if you were constantly coming back with issues, you might want to actually test the handles so that you minimize that return rate. But I mean, like, if it's working,
I would say 95% of people, maybe more, have no issues. 5% or 4% of people maybe would say, like, hey, this doesn't fit, such and such. And it's just a matter of they just are being way too delicate with it. Because there's like, if you want it to fit solidly, like, it also can't be ridiculously easy to go in, right? Like there's a balance there, which is why you use reamers and stuff to get a reliable diameter on holes, especially where the fit matters. And then maybe, I don't know, 1% of the time, like, I'll actually have like a problem on them that needs to be fixed. But I don't know. You got to realize that, like, when something goes wrong in that sense, like where the holes don't line up or something, it's like, you got to understand, it lined up enough to fit on the fixture plate, right? So, like, to fit on the fixture plate, the holes have to be within a very small, like, deviation from where they're supposed to be. Otherwise, they just won't fit on my fixture plate. Like, I won't even be able to finish them, right?
exactly.
So
It's almost like there's safeguards in place before you even get to the point of the topic of assembling it comes up.
right. So, and I would say, Noah asked how the production on the Spitfire is going. I'm like partially done with this fixture plate that I need to get made. The reason why I changed, like, I had a fixture plate made, and maybe I should have just run it, but I don't. That would waste what I've done so far. It would kind of essentially waste a chance to test it, right? Because I would then just be switching to a different fixture plate anyway, right? So it defeats the purpose. But I altered the fixture plate slightly so that any kind of deviation, like there's always going to be some small amount of deviation in the, like where you set the reference point, where you set the 0 point on the machine, right? And so, in designing it, I've tried to find where I can set that 0 to minimize the effect that deviation has on the handles. What I've done is I've switched it around so that if there's some kind of deviation that causes, the actual machining of the slab to be like, and I mean slightly, like a very small amount, like offset to one side, it does the same thing but mirrored on the other one. So they still fit together like perfectly flush, which is the goal because they're going to be Chantwich, right? So you need those two sides to line up well enough that there's not some kind of, discernible like unevenness, especially for a knife that costs that much. So that's why those little details matter. And here's the other thing is, and this is why I don't, do you think it'd be interesting if we did like a podcast or two where we go over the actual machining process, like how the handles are made?
Oh, for sure. That I actually would love to see kind of a maker's perspective. I mean, like we've gotten some maker's perspectives from various people, but I mean, I always enjoy seeing more.
Cool. Yeah, then we should do that. But one of the things that it's impossible to realize, even if you've got experience with like CNC stuff, like the number of things that are super tiny changes, but when you make all of them, they add up over time. And that's why people are happy with my handles. The reason why people are happy with my handles is I've fucked up a lot of handles. So I know, I guess, it's like that cheesy thing, making a light bulb, like, oh, I've just found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. In some senses, like, yeah, I've found almost every possible way to fuck up replicant handles, right? And I've removed or at least minimized the chances of that happening. So I don't know. That might be interesting for people to see. I know Noah says that would be interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, we got a future episode planned now.
Cool. I'll have to get a bunch of footage. I have been doing some live streams on my Instagram account where I'm, showing videos while I'm drilling and stuff. So, if people wanted, they could go check that out, but it's not particularly professional and it gets political and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Proceed with caution.
could always mute the video.
Well, one of the things that I talked about, which I think should be said, I really think people need to like get this through their heads, right? Like, and I know this from my childhood, right? Like the things that make you really good at one thing are often mutually exclusive with the things that, like the character traits or whatever, that would make you good at something else. And so if you are a parent, you can't get all fucking bent out of shape over one thing that your child is seemingly unable to change, right? Because if you get your wish and that does change, you might not like the other stuff that changes too. Well, it's the same thing for running a business, right? Like the things that would make you good at designing handles and making the handles good are often, like detrimental to, actually trying to run the business. So that's something that I find that I struggle with. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's something that will kind of like those interlocking skills kind of improve together. So I mean, that'd be my take. Where
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's all related to the production and sale of handles. So, I mean, I would imagine that if one improves slightly, the other would improve as well. It's not like they exist in their own independent
Well, like
chambers.
so here's what I'm bad at, right? Is like efficiently making large quantities of handles. And the reason is I'm way too caught up on everything, like there's no imperfections, right? So that really slows stuff down. Well, if that were to change and then suddenly I like discounted that and was no longer caught up on that, well, that would show in the quality of the handles, right? So it's about finding a balance, but I don't know. So that's my thing that I think would help the mental health of everybody to realize you can't be good at everything. Except
That's
titanium. Titanium is good for everything.
Oh man. No,
But
I
yeah.
actually I enjoy engraving on the titanium, quite honestly.
What's it like? Like how does it feel different or similar to other stuff that you've done?
Well, I don't like steel, because it's hard and my tips break often. Titanium, it offers resistance, but the graver tips, as long as they're sharpened, will go right through it.
Cool.
Um,
I will
yeah.
say, I never DM'd you about this, but I have not found those little pendants, so I might just need to cut more of them
Oof.
out.
Oof.
I mean, it wasn't a
Oof.
huge quantity of them, but it was a fair amount of time that I'd put into those. I'm sure they'll show up somewhere, like, right after you, like, die or get struck by lightning or something, and then they'll just show up and it'll be like, God fucking damn it.
You'll just burn them and
Yeah, like in a vigil.
no, you'll what's it called? You'll basically grind it all up into dust and just throw it, scatter it
Like
across.
ashes. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's the status on those. I know that's not the best news, but I do have the lines, like the scribe lines on the piece all lined up kind of thing. Actually, I started cutting them out. You'd be proud of me. And then I ruined my bandsaw blade. So, yeah. I had to pause cutting them.
Who would win, one titanium boy or a I don't know how much bandsaw machines cost, but one
Bandsaw machines? What the fuck? You mean bandsaws? Oh my god. Sorry. I was laughing with you, not at you.
I'm reporting you to the authorities.
Please don't. Noah M says, me and my friends still laugh at the fact you anode your plate for your satellite. Are you talking about the radar? The bracket that I made for that? Because if so, I mean, it was like a meme in that like research group, like the whole titanium is bad, aluminum. I'm sorry, titanium good, aluminum bad. You better not tell anybody that I fucking said that. If you tell anybody I said that, I'm gonna deny it. Okay?
I already got it recorded.
No, you don't. It's not going to be anywhere.
No, it's too late.
There are no witnesses, or there won't be. There's not going to be any witnesses in a short while.
Look,
but yeah, he's talking about I did that for all of them. Like for that was a radar that is it's still hooked up on the campus and everything, but it's like nobody's. I don't know that we have a use for it at this point, because the thing that our research group is looking at doing has to do with finding poachers and stuff. And we would not be using the radar for that most likely, because what we were doing before was detecting and tracking UAS, which is unmanned aerial systems. So, I don't know. That's going to be there for a while, and in 15 years or something, like someone's going to find it and be like, why the fuck do they use titanium?
I mean, I think the answer or the question there is, why isn't titanium being used more?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny, dude. The number of misunderstandings that people have about titanium, it's kind of funny. Like, it's not a hard metal. People think, well, titanium is it's the hardest metal on the planet. Well, it's far from the hardest metal on the planet. I've got a dive knife to show you why to never buy a knife with a titanium blade. It's a fucking disaster. Thank fuck I didn't get caught in a fishing net, right? So, yes, titanium is fantastic for some stuff, not for other stuff. So it comes down to knowing, like, material selection does matter, especially the more specialized, situations you get into, the more like you would want to really know. So
Yeah, I mean, hey, that could even be another topic of conversation, is just choosing the right material for knives in general. I know we kind of talked about battle songs, but in general, we could that could be a future discussion.
yeah, I'm a little bit wishy-washy on like the metallurgy. Like, I think I know enough to sound like a tryhard, but not enough to actually know, you know? Um I can do my best though, but I feel like there's just going to be some person that's like a metallurgist that's going to just sit there and like develop drinking problems just listening to me. Yes, Noah, that is me. And I have other accounts that a lot of people don't know about. Um, did I ever tell you, if I go to Blade Show, I'm not going to be going as Squiggle Scales. I'm going to just be going as, and I'm not going to be going as, my other ones either. Like,
See, you benefit from the fact that you haven't really done a whole lot of face reveals.
yeah,
I'm
well, whose fault
screwed.
is that,
I'm
dumbass?
screwed. Yeah, I'm screwed if I tried to claim
Do you think?
anonymous.
Do you have any interest in going?
I would like to go to Blade Show. I think it'd be a nice experience. I would try and play incognito for as long as possible before I inevitably was found out, and then I'd have to be like,
Or just
I have.
wear hats and stuff. Like, I think you could do it, frankly. You know,
Yeah, probably if you just wear sunglasses and a hat, who's gonna immediately say,
walking around inside with fucking like double sunglasses.
"Let me get my duffel bag and trench coat as well," just to
Yeah.
really.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh
No.
boy.
I have, I think, just under 1,000 follow requests on that account. I will try to remember to get to yours. Or does your surname start with a B? I don't know if I'm thinking this is the right person. For all I know, some random person is just going to get their fucking follow request accepted after however, God knows how long. A lot of what I had happen is because I had done that anodizing for Evan Connect on his Alpha Beast, and then he posted it. Okay, I don't know what your Instagram is then. Okay. But yeah, he posted on his Instagram, so there were like a bunch of fucking middle schoolers that requested to follow me. And then other just random people from YouTube. But yeah, that's why I don't have a ton of followers on that account. So I guess I'm a very judgmental person like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Would you agree that
that's.
I'm a judgmental and shitty person?
I think we're gonna end it on that note. No, no comment. No comment. No comment. No comment.
Doug, we can talk about this later.
Yeah, offline. We can talk about this offline.
But yeah, you should we call the stream now? Anything else you want to talk
I
about?
I think we contributed some good information to anyone that listens. I'm pretty happy about how this went.
Cool. And then like we said, next week we'll be doing the tutorial for how to scam people. Right?
Ah, yes, yeah.
Right.
Tune in next week for the real stream.
Yeah. Cool. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining. It's cool that people stayed through till the end. A lot of people at least. And you gonna still see if we can get one of the guests lined up for next week.
Yes, I will be contacting that person that I talked about probably tonight and see if they are available for either next Tuesday or the following.
Okay. And then if not, we can just go down the list and hopefully we'll have a guest for next time, because there's no way I'm going to have like that machining stream or podcast ready anytime soon. I got to get a lot of footage and stuff. So, cool. Well, y'all have a good night and we will see you next week.
Have a good one.